They were horrified when an angry pro-Trump mob stormed the Capitol on January 6th, but election workers say they weren't exactly surprised. That's because Donald Trump supporters targeted them first as they counted ballots across the country. As NBCNews.com political reporter Jane Timm writes, those poll workers are still coping with weeks of abuse and threats. Jane joins me now. Jane, NBC News interviewed over a dozen election officials who say they were threatened, verbally abused. Tell us more about what they experienced.
You know, what was really remarkable is that I heard the same thing from officials all over the country. I talked with Secretary of State in Arizona, Katie Hobbs, and I think we have that sound. Let's play it.
People, have posted things, threatened, we're going to burn down her house and kill her family and teach these cheaters a lesson, stuff like that. I mean, that is, to some degree, as an elected official, because of the way things are today, you sign up to put yourself out there for some of these attacks, but nobody signs up for threats.
And this was really what we heard from officials all over. I heard this in Georgia. I heard it in Pennsylvania, sort of threats against people's families, threats against them. I mean, Secretary Hobbs told me they had to turn off phones in her entire agency because people were calling anyone they could reach, even like business services in Arizona. This is really common. It was months of abuse, a fair amount of death threats, and people are really, truly still reeling from this kind of activity. Protesters showed up at Secretary Hobbs's house saying, "We are watching you," chanting outside her home. Her neighbors called the police. She actually went to a hotel for a couple days because she felt so unsafe.
Jane, it is so insane to hear her say that when you're an election official, a Secretary of State, that you sign up for certain things, but death threats, it's just, it's really sad that that's where we are right now. I know these elected officials say they have lingering trauma from the experience, which I can completely understand. How are they coping?
It's interesting. A lot of them said they felt like this was a calling and they had been really shown how important their jobs were by this election. But I mean, the effects are really still lingering. One woman said she'd lost 16 pounds between the primary and the general election, and she was a pretty petite woman. There was another person who said she still has nightmares and she's nervous when she's out and about. And she had a police escort to go to work as a city commissioner in Philadelphia. I mean, these are people who typically said we had really kind of boring, under the radar jobs. And now we have this very different high-profile job.
Oh, not boring or under the radar anymore, that's for sure. All right, so we've got the midterm elections coming up next year. How do states and cities restore trust in the system? How do they make sure this doesn't happen again to our poll workers?
I asked this question to almost everybody, and they said, that's really the big question. How do we get back? Secretary Hobbs said, it is frustrating to be tasked with restoring trust when we didn't break it. And I think that's important because you look at these officials and they have been saying, look, the election was secure, it was fair, and they say they're going to beat the drum right back, reminding people that it was safe and fair, but they weren't the ones who questioned it in the first place. And I think that when you still have, and we still do, elected officials saying that maybe we need reforms and we need things to clean up the voter rolls, we're seeing that a lot of time right now. State legislatures across the country, people saying maybe we should do some new election laws. That's what makes people not trust it, when people say it needs to be fixed.
Jane, God bless them for the bravery they showed and the important work that they do. We are so lucky that there are folks willing to take those risks and deal with those attacks so that we can have democracy in our country. Jane Timm, thank you so much.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.